And in those 30 plus years, I've dealt with clients from around the world and have a particular depth of experience in dealing with clients from Russia, the Middle East, Hong Kong, China, and the US. Fire prevention is basically domestic and international tax and asset protection planning strategies. Our first case study is of a wealthy Russian family. For those of you who've not read my bio, my name is David Lesperance. During my last 2 years of law school, I worked as a Canadian immigration officer, and I was called to the bar over 3 decades ago in 1990. When I became a lawyer, some would say I saw the light. Others would argue that I went to the dark side. And in those 30 plus years, I've dealt with clients from around the world and have a particular depth of experience in dealing with clients from Russia, the Middle East, Hong Kong, China, and the US. And as a young lawyer, I was quickly thrown into the mix of dealing with another interesting time, which included the breakup of the Soviet Union, the lead up to the Hong Kong handover, and the Gulf War. This experience was supplemented by the fact that I personally relocated myself and my family several times with stints in the UK as a so-called non-dom, Hong Kong, the UAE, Canada, now Poland. And probably next year, I will be moving to Portugal. So my professional experience in immigration, tax, investment treaties, and family law is therefore refined by personal experience. One of my favorite sayings is that backup plans must not just be sold at the boardroom table, but it also must be sold at the dining room table. In practice, this means that all planning must not only make fiscal sense, it must also be acceptable and livable for all family members who are involved. One other point that I want to make clear upfront is as a result of my legal training, I'm acutely aware of even the appearance of conflicts of interest in my advice. For this reason, when retained by a client, I am only compensated by that client and not by third-party commissions from countries, developers, or promoters. In this way, my clients can be confident that my incentives are aligned with their goals and my advice is not driven by a desire to receive a hidden commission. If a commission is paid by a third party as part of the planning, I always disclose this upfront to the client and have the commission paid back to the client. While some will argue that the interesting times have never stopped, there is no argument that we are now living in interesting times. The global impact and fallout of COVID-19 pandemic has had and will in the future have a dramatic impact on everybody's lives. The first thing I want to say is that the pandemic is not the apocalypse. In other words, it's not the end of humankind. Rather, it's a profound event like 9/11, computerization, industrialization, the age of adventure, or the Black Death. This pandemic will have a significant long-term impact on geopolitics, international and domestic economies, society, and your family lives. Like the sun coming up in the morning, there's nothing we can do to stop the event from occurring. However, we do have complete control over our reaction to the event. Some will curse the sun, some will vote for opportunistic politicians who will vow to stop the sun from rising, some will put on suntan lotion and seek shade, and some will make solar panels. Individuals or families who have sufficient wealth to consider a second citizenship or residence want to do what all humans want to do. They want to take all steps within their means to protect themselves and their families. There's nothing wrong with this, but those who do not have these financial resources will resent you. Another threat is that governments will see the pandemic as a unique opportunity to exert further control over their most valuable citizens. This can take the form of increased taxation, social credit scores, or increasing the ease of tracking and seizing money through the creation of national cryptocurrencies. With these two threats combined, the cost of failure is life-changing. That is why prudent families are taking steps now to protect themselves against this predictable near future. However, rather than the piecemealed, siloed approach to the past, the key to success in protecting your family's well-being and wealth will be to look at all goals and threats in an integrated backup plan. This means selecting a given residence or citizenship in the context of a complete backup plan, which also looks at second homes, tax, processing time, lifestyle, stability, rule of law, and the government's ability to deal with future profound events such as future pandemics or natural disasters. For the purpose of today's presentation, I'll be using the analogy that wealthy families are living in global and domestic wildfire zones. What one considers a wildfire threat may include pending or future tax-the-rich policies, increasing antagonism as a result of populist rhetoric changes from getting money for good things to taking money from bad people, to political polarization, to significant changes in the geopolitical and/or economic situation in the family's current home country. I've chosen the wildfire analogy because it is a useful paradigm in which to consider strategies to deal with these threats. Logically speaking, when your family finds itself in a wildfire zone, there are three practical steps that one would take to protect your family wealth and well-being, namely fire prevention, fire insurance, and a fire escape plan. So fire prevention is basically domestic and international tax and asset protection planning strategies. The appropriate fire prevention strategy for a given family is dependent upon their situation, concerns, and goals, and is often the product of a collaboration of a team of local and international advisors, including experts like myself. If we can go to the next slide, please. Fire insurance is the acquisition of alternative citizenships and residence. Our presentation today will be discussing this strategy and applying it in two different case studies. Next slide, please. A fire escape plan is an asset-by-asset plan for when the fire comes too close for comfort and the family decides to relocate themselves from their current tax home. It is, again, a collaborative effort both in its design and execution. Together, fire insurance and a fire escape plan are known as a backup plan. Next slide, please. So when we look at fire insurance, let's start with one of the two elements, alternative citizenship. Fundamentally, an alternative citizenship shifts the power equation from the nation state, which issues the passports to the family, to the family. To understand this dynamic, it's essential that all family members understand that a passport is the travel document of a citizen. It's also key to note that it's the property of the issuing government and can be canceled at a moment's notice. In some cases, certain citizenships have other issues which necessitate the need for an alternative citizenship and passport. This includes mandatory military service, or in the case of the United States, citizenship-based tax liability. Next slide, please. Now let's look at the methods of securing alternative citizenships. These include having an existing citizenship from birth. This is true for those who are born as dual citizens or are born outside of their current home and they immigrated and became naturalized in their new country, but they still retain the country of their birth or heritage. Second, lineage. This is where alternative citizenship is acquired through having ancestors born in a country which grants citizenship through heritage. Number three, aliyah, or the law of return. This is the case where Israel grants citizenships to those who qualify as a result of their Jewish faith or heritage. Number four, naturalization. This, for example, is what Ina was speaking about. This is where one has acquired a foreign residence and completed the requirements to become naturalized in another country. Number five is citizenship by investment. This is where a country will grant citizenship in exchange for an investment in real estate or a government donation. Although the most commonly discussed online and in the media, this method should only be looked at if the prior four methods are unavailable or inappropriate from a timing perspective. Next slide, please. Along with alternative citizenship, it is essential that a backup plan include an alternative residence. The alternative residence is required as in the future, individuals who wish to leave their current tax home need to self-limit their time in their former country of tax residence. If they have to limit their time sleeping in their current tax home country, that means that they must be sleeping somewhere else. Next slide, please. Methods of securing alternative residence include as a right of an alternative citizenship. Some country citizenships only allow the holder to live in that specific country. Other countries, such as those which are part of the European Union, give the holder the right to live in that country and 26 others. Secondly, in the case where one spouse or partner already possesses an alternative citizenship or residence, residence status is often granted to the other spouse. Number three, some countries grant residence status to those who have certain occupations, experience, education, or world-class skills. That, for example, was what Olga was talking about with the UAE. Also Canada, US, and many other countries do this. And finally, as with citizenship by investment, if other pathways are not available, then residence can be acquired through a residence by investment or golden visa program. Similar to citizenship by investment, residence is granted in exchange for an investment, real estate purchase, and/or a government donation. This is essential to understand whether a residence will lead to citizenship. Some do not. The criteria are quite heavy, so you must look at that up front. Now that we have a basic framework of backup planning in place, let's look at our case studies. Next slide, please. Our first case study is of a wealthy Russian family. Both parents are in their late 40s. They have one child who is 20, one who is 17. The whole family are Russian nationals from birth and ancestry. The husband is Jewish, but not currently religiously active. His wife and children are all non-practicing Russian Orthodox. The family assets consist of a Russian operating company with 200 employees, substantial portfolio income, and large residential properties in Russia and in the United Kingdom. Currently, the family are resident but not domiciled in the UK, having obtained their status under Tier 1 immigration visas, with the husband as the main applicant. They are eligible to apply for an indefinite leave to remain, in other words, permanent resident status, in the fourth quarter of this year. Now let's look at their concerns and goals. Amongst their key concerns is nervousness about securing an indefinite leave to remain. They followed closely the problems experienced by their fellow Russian Roman Abramovich and want to have an alternative should they experience similar difficulties. And they, like all wealthy residents of the UK, are worried about the possibility of increased future tax-the-rich policies, such as a wealth or mansion tax that may be applied to remittance-basis non-doms like themselves, along with normal residents and who are domiciled in the UK. A backup plan will help them move quickly should the Chancellor of the Exchequer bring in major changes which they feel are unfair. Along with having these UK-oriented concerns, they are worried about only having a Russian passport and having a large, immovable business in Russia, both of which are subject to political pressure. And given the ever-evolving Russian attitudes and policies, they have justifiable policy concerns around dual citizenship and wealth protection. On the goals side of the equation, they've decided that they want their youngest child to at least complete her A levels in the United Kingdom, and if possible, go to a UK university. In the long term, they hope to stay in the UK, but if that becomes untenable because of the tax burden, they wish to live mostly in Europe. Now let's look at the elements of a backup plan they may want to consider to mitigate these concerns and reach these goals. Next slide, please. First, the husband should look at his ability to acquire Israeli citizenship. If he wants to explore the eligibility of his children, he should first consider whether he wants to expose them to Israel's mandatory military service. In addition, the whole family should consider a second citizenship or passport by naturalizing in the UK. For a backup to the UK and to give them EU mobility rights that they have lost in Brexit, they should also look at either residence by investment in an EU country, which leads to future citizenships, such programs as Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, Cyprus, or Malta, or citizenship by investment in Malta, Greece, Cyprus, Montenegro, or as of this morning, Northern Macedonia. There are pros and cons to each of these options. Malta's program is really a residence by investment with a shortened naturalization period of 1 or 3 years, depending upon the government fee. A major concern of the Malta program is that by statute, Malta publishes the names of all new citizens. Their privacy concerns may lead this family away from this program. Greece is exploring bringing in a brand new citizenship by investment program to supplement their previously successful residence by investment program. Initial reports are that this program will be similar in structure to the recently closed Cypriot program and will come into operation in the summer or fall of this year. Cyprus, as many know, had a very successful citizenship by investment program for a number of years, but it was closed in November of 2020 as a result of media revelations about poor security screening procedures. However, given the economic crisis in Cyprus, caused by the loss of revenue from this program and the tremendous impact of COVID on the tourism industry, there's a significant chance that by the upcoming May election, a new revised program may be introduced. Also, Montenegro is operating an active citizenship by investment program. However, at this time, it's only a candidate to join the EU rather than already a member like Malta, Greece, or Cyprus. The risk here is that Montenegro is not accepted into the EU in the near future or ever. And as I mentioned, as of this morning, Northern Macedonia, which is also an EU candidate country, which like Montenegro is on the US E2 visa list and shares similar visa-free programs, has just announced that they will be entering the fray. It appears it'll be a bit cheaper, so it'll be quite competitive compared to the Montenegro program. Now, another part of a backup plan that this family may find invaluable is an investment treaty structure to protect their immovable Russian business. This can be a financially critical addition to a backup plan, but the discussions of the details is a presentation all on its own. Finally, the development of a backup plan is also the perfect time to make sure that all financial arrangements are tax efficient and protective. While the parents may have a solid marriage, statistically, one of their two children may divorce in the future. If they're still in the UK at the time, in other words, the divorce capital of the world, then a failure to plan now can cause a major hit to the family's wealth. One needs to remember that divorce is not a black swan event. Furthermore, while tax is a percentage of income, divorce is a percentage of capital. Now let's finish up with our second case study, which involves a large Saudi family. The patriarch of the family is a Saudi businessman in his late 60s who is also resident in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. His first wife is Lebanese. They have 4 adult children who are married and each have children. 2 of the adult children and their families are living in the UK, while 2 are still in the kingdom. The patriarch's second wife is Iraqi. They have 4 unmarried children ranging in age from 15 to 22. 2 children are finishing high school in Saudi, while the 2 oldest are in university in the UK. All the children and grandchildren only have Saudi citizenship. The patriarch's assets consist of a large operating company with active businesses throughout the Middle East, substantial portfolio income, and large residential properties in Saudi Arabia and the UK. Now let's dive into the concerns and goals of this family. Next slide, please. Like the Russian family, they are worried about the changing UK tax scene and want a backup plan which will help them move quickly should the Chancellor bring in unfair policies. In a similar vein to the Russian family, they are also not sure they either want to remain in the UK under unfavorable conditions or return to or remain in their home country. As pragmatists, they are concerned about only having a Saudi passport and assets in the kingdom and throughout the Gulf during a time of pending Saudi royal succession. Like the Russian family, they also have privacy concerns around the issues of dual citizenship and wealth protection. However, unlike the Russian family, this family needs to deal with forced heirship rules and have Sharia compliant structures and investments. Along with countering these risks, the patriarch wants all of his children and grandchildren to have a UK university education. Personally, he prefers to partially or fully retire in Europe. Now let's look at the elements of the backup plan that the patriarch and his family may want to consider to mitigate their concerns and reach their goals. Next slide, please. The key is for all the family members to quietly and quickly acquire second citizenships. Those family members already in the UK should look at UK naturalization when eligible. And for a backup to the UK and to give them EU mobility rights, the entire family should also look at either residence by investment in an EU country leading to future citizenship, or citizenship by investment in the countries that I mentioned. The consideration of each of these options should take into account privacy, investment requirements, physical presence requirements, which are a cost to my clients, tax issues, and the length of time to citizenship and a second passport. And there are pros and cons to each of these options. With regards to future residents, the patriarch and some senior family members also consider that Monaco fits their lifestyle. And like the Russian family, they should explore closely an investment treaty structure to protect their immovable Saudi and Gulf businesses. As part of this planning, along with tax efficiency and asset protection, succession planning to deal with forced heirship rules and Sharia compliance is key. Finally, given that there is an expectation that many of the children and grandchildren may spend their school years and beyond in the UK, the planning must also anticipate a potential future UK family court ruling. Next slide, please. So as you can now appreciate, the creation of an effective and efficient backup plan can be life-saving and financially critical. It's definitely not a do-it-yourself project or done by Googling golden visa. This simply gets response from hundreds of commission-driven salespeople on the internet. Rather, the key to success involves a knowledgeable, experienced, and coordinated team of experts, understanding your family's concerns and goals, and putting together a plan which is flexible enough to deal with a plethora of possibilities that the future has in store for us.